Hi everyone, welcome back to another chilling mystery. This is a fictional story. All names, places, and events are entirely made up for storytelling purposes. If you enjoy suspenseful stories that slowly uncover hidden truths, make sure to like, share, and follow this series. Let's begin. May 7th, 2002, 7:42 a.m. The sun had barely cleared the tree line in the sleepy town of Bellwood when Lacey Morin, age 10, hopped onto her bicycle and waved goodbye to her mother. The air smelled faintly of cut grass and spring pollen, and a breeze tugged gently at her ponytail as she pedaled down Sycamore Lane. Her purple bicycle, a birthday gift from just 5 months ago, shimmered in the light. Streamers danced from the ends of her handlebars, and the bell she loved to ring sang a cheerful ting as she passed the Watsons' white picket fence. She wore a windbreaker that morning, blue with 2 yellow stripes down the arms zipped to her chin. Her red lunchbox, packed with a turkey sandwich and 2 chocolate chip cookies, bounced lightly in the basket, strapped to her bike's rear. She was smiling. That was the last time anyone saw her. By 8:15 a.m., Mrs. Riley, the crossing guard posted at Elm and Meadow, realized Lacey hadn't come by. By 11:00 a.m., the school secretary called the Morin household to ask why Lacey was marked absent. By 3:00 p.m., her mother Denise had checked every friend's house, every sidewalk, every shortcut between home and school, and was beginning to scream when she realized her daughter hadn't even made it to the front gate. The official report listed it simply, "Child failed to arrive at school, believed to have vanished during commute." Police found no skid marks, no signs of abduction, no bicycle, no lunchbox, nothing. Just a 10-year-old girl, gone. 12 years later, July 16, 2014, the sun beat hard over Lake Elbridge, a slow, sprawling body of water nestled deep in the woods, roughly 10 miles from Bellwood. It was summer, and a group of local high schoolers had organized a survival camp for fun. No phones, no parents, just tents, canned food, and whatever they could carry on their backs. They'd picked the far end of the lake, the forgotten side, where the trees were denser and the trails were barely marked. It was mid-afternoon when Micah Turner, 17, waded into the shallow water looking for frog eggs or something interesting to gross out his younger cousin. Instead, his foot hit something metal, something that didn't move. He called the others. 3 boys, 2 girls, and a lot of nervous jokes. Later, they pulled the object from the muck, a rusted bicycle frame, corroded but intact. Still attached a broken bell, its red paint long gone, but a faint outline of a heart-shaped sticker still visible. One of the girls, Kara Sloan, stared at it for a long time. Her mother had once told her a story about a missing girl, a purple bike, a town that stopped breathing for months. It had been a bedtime story, a scary one. Now it was real. The police came that evening. They retrieved the bike, they dredged the lake, and they found more. Back in Bellwood, now 28 and living in Chicago, Hannah Morin got the call from her mother. Hannah had been 16 when her sister disappeared. She'd walked the woods, handed out flyers, screamed at news reporters, and prayed in the church pews even when she didn't believe anymore. Now 12 years later, a bike had come back. Her bike. That's what her mother said. They found her bike, Hannah, that purple thing with the heart bell. It's hers. I know it's hers. Hannah's hands shook. She was sitting at her desk, grading papers, surrounded by the quiet of her apartment and the hum of the city beyond the window. She was a teacher now, 4th grade. Kids just like Lacey, smart, distracted, silly, loud, and fragile, in ways no one notices until it's too late. "I'm coming home," Hannah said. "Don't talk to anyone else until I do." May 2002, flashback. The morning Lacey disappeared had been an ordinary Tuesday. Hannah remembered the smell of toast, the sound of the weather report on the TV, the way Lacey had danced around the kitchen, singing some nonsense song about math. 5 + 5 is 10. That's more than all the men. She remembered being annoyed she had a quiz that day, and Lacey was being extra. "Eat your cereal," she snapped. "You eat your face," Lacey replied. Mom Hannah had groaned. Denise had laughed. "I swear you two could be twins. Hannah, let her be. And Lace, don't be fresh." She remembered that being the last real moment. By the time she got home from school, the police were already there. By dinner time, their backyard was filled with searchers. By morning, the town was in mourning. July 2014 present. When Hannah returned to Bellwood, the first thing she did was visit the police department. Detective Raymond Ellison greeted her. He was older now, grayer, his gut larger, but his eyes were kind. "We never stopped caring about your sister," he said. "We just stopped having leads." He showed her the bike, or what was left of it. The color had mostly washed away, but the serial number matched the one from the receipt in her mother's file cabinet. It was Lacey's. And then he handed her something else, a plastic bag. Inside, a water-damaged, disposable Kodak camera. "It was lodged under the frame," he said. "We had the film developed. Only 4 images survived. 2 are useless. One is a photo of the lake, someone's foot. But the last, well, I thought you should see it first." He laid the photo on the table. Hannah stared. In the photo, Lacey stood at the edge of the lake. Her hair was longer than Hannah remembered, as if it had been taken after she disappeared. She wore a hoodie, not hers, too big. And behind her, partially obscured by shadow, was a figure. Tall, blurry, watching. "What is this?" Hannah whispered. "We were hoping you could tell us." That night, Hannah didn't sleep. She sat on the floor of her childhood bedroom, now a guest room, and opened the box marked Lacey's Things. It was mostly dolls' drawings, a music box shaped like a carousel, but tucked in the bottom, folded in a child's hand, was a map one she remembered helping Lacey draw. It was a treasure map of places Lacey wanted to visit that summer. The lake was on it. So was something else, a red X by a cabin labeled Secret House. Hannah didn't remember that part, but she knew what she had to do. The drawing looked childish at first glance, uneven lines in Crayola marker faded from years tucked away in the bottom of a cardboard box. Trees were shaped like green cotton balls. The lake was a wavy blue blob. At the bottom, in uneven purple letters, it said, "Lacey's Summer Adventures." There were stars next to the ice cream parlor, a heart over the library, and a circle around the playground near Maple Street. But what caught Hannah's attention, what made the hairs on her arms rise, was the red X scratched near the lake over a crude square labeled in bubble letters, "My Secret House." Her heart thudded. She didn't remember this part of the drawing. Maybe they'd drawn it together one afternoon and she'd just not paid attention. But Lacey had been 10 when she made this. That much Hannah was sure of. The date scrawled at the top said May 3rd, 2002, just 4 days before she vanished. She stared at the drawing long into the night, the camera photo beside it. 2 pieces from 2 different puzzles that were slowly beginning to overlap. The next morning, Hannah went back to the Bellwood Police Department and requested to see the files again, not the case summary, but the raw notes. Witness statements, property records, geographic search grids. Detective Ellison wasn't thrilled. "You know these files are still technically restricted," he said, scratching his chin. "Your family, sure, but I'm not supposed to." Hannah interrupted. "I'm not asking to interfere. I'm asking because you all missed something. You had to, because if you didn't, my sister wouldn't have vanished into nothing." He looked at her for a long time, then sighed and opened the file room. 3 hours later, Hannah was sitting in a windowless room surrounded by stacks of manila folders. The reports were meticulous, dated time-stamped, stamped with initials. It was easy to see how many people had cared about Lacey's case. Volunteers had combed woods, divers had searched ponds, psychologists had profiled potential abductors, and yet nothing came of it. Until now. In the original search map, she spotted it. A cluster of cabins on the southeast side of Lake Elbridge marked Private Property, Discontinued 1999. The notation beneath it was brief. Cabins abandoned, locked, no access road maintained, deemed unlikely, no further action. Hannah felt a chill run down her arms. They had dismissed it. Because it was inconvenient, because it was far, because no one thought a 10-year-old girl could get there on her own. What if she hadn't gone there on her own? What if someone took her? And what if someone knew those cabins were forgotten? That afternoon, Hannah drove out to Lake Elbridge again, this time alone. She told her mother she was just taking a walk to clear her head. She didn't say she was following a clue drawn in marker 12 years earlier. The trail to the southeast edge of the lake wasn't even a trail anymore. It was barely a break in the trees. Brambles scratched her jeans, mosquitoes whined near her ears, but she kept walking, the sketch in her pocket and a flashlight in her hand. The ground grew uneven. Roots jutted out like traps. She stumbled more than once. Then, just as she was beginning to doubt herself, she saw it. A roofline barely visible through the trees. One cabin, then another, then three. Old wooden structures, weathered, rotting. The wood had grayed, shingles had fallen, and windows were either boarded or shattered. Nature had tried to reclaim them, but they still stood. And as she stepped closer, something on the porch of the third cabin made her stop breathing. A rusted chain, a padlock broken and discarded, and beside it a plastic hair clip shaped like a butterfly, purple. She bent down slowly, her knees trembling. Lacey used to love those clips. They'd bought them in a dollar store, multi-pack, pink, blue, and purple. Hannah had the pink one in a drawer at home. Lacey had begged for the purple. And now it sat here, faded and brittle with time, at the doorstep of an abandoned cabin in the woods. The door was ajar. It let out a long, low creak when Hannah pushed it open. The smell hit her first, damp wood mildew dust. But something else too. Something sweeter. Vanilla. She stepped inside. The light through the broken boards cast long shadows. Dust motes danced. The cabin was one room, a stone fireplace on one side, a rusted cot in the corner, a crate filled with broken dishes and trash. Empty soda bottles, torn paper, a melted candle. She almost turned back, but then she saw it. Carved into the wooden wall above the fireplace, barely legible under a layer of grime. Lacey was here, 2002. Hannah choked back a sound somewhere between a sob and a gasp. She rushed forward, running her fingers over the letters. Lacey had been here. She was here. Not just a theory, not a possibility. Fact. And then she noticed something else. The hearth of the fireplace had been moved. Stones pushed aside. Someone had hidden something underneath. She knelt and pried at the opening. It took her 10 minutes, a bent pocket knife and scraped knuckles. But finally she lifted the slab. Inside was a small metal box. A lunchbox. Red. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside were folded notes, written in child's handwriting. Most were faded, smudged by time and damp, but she could still read the first line of the topmost paper. Dear Hannah, I think I have to stay here for a while. Her vision blurred. There were more notes, each dated, each written over a span of what looked like weeks, maybe months. Lacey had been alive. After the town gave up, after they stopped looking, she had been alive. But where did she go? Why did the letters stop? And who had brought her here in the first place? As Hannah stood clutching the letters to her chest, a branch cracked in the woods behind the cabin. She turned sharply. Nothing. But she had the unmistakable feeling that she was being watched. Hannah stood in the middle of the rotting cabin, the silence pressing around her like the weight of 1,000 unsaid words. The box in her hands, a red lunchbox coated in a layer of soot and dust, contained more than just paper. It carried proof. Proof that her sister had been alive after May 7, 2002. Proof that someone, perhaps many, had failed her. The first letter was dated May 11, 2002, 4 days after Lacey disappeared. Dear Hannah, I don't know what day it is because no one tells me. I think it's Saturday. The man says I have to stay here for a while. He brings me sandwiches and sometimes juice. There's no bathroom and it's really cold at night. I miss Mom. I miss you too. I think you're mad at me. I didn't mean to run away. I just followed the dog. Then the man said he'd take me home, but he didn't. Hannah's heart clenched. She pressed the paper flat against her lap, careful not to tear it. The penmanship was shaky, as if written on her knees in low light. The next page, written in green crayon, was shorter. There's a trap door in the floor, but it's always locked. He keeps the key in his coat. I heard him say he'd fix up the cabin better. There's a candle now. I read books when he's gone. There were 9 letters total. The last one was dated July 2, 2002, nearly 2 months after Lacey vanished. He doesn't talk to me anymore. I think I made him mad. I told him I wanted to go home and he screamed. Then he didn't come back for 2 days. I had to eat crackers and water. There's something under the bed that scratches at night. Maybe a raccoon. I don't like it here anymore. Please come find me. I'm scared. The bottom of the page was smudged. Possibly tears, possibly damp, possibly both. Hannah's fingers trembled. She had thought she'd cried all her tears over the years at the funerals they held without a body, at the vigils with melted candles, at the birthdays that passed in silence. But this was different. This was her sister's voice echoing back to her from a place no one had thought to look. A child begging to be found while the world moved on. Outside the cabin, the woods had grown darker. The sun was beginning to dip beneath the tree line. Hannah had lost track of time. The snap of a twig brought her back to the present. Her head jerked toward the door. "Hello," she called out, voice steady though her chest thudded. "Is someone there?" No response. The trees didn't move, but something in her gut twisted. She stepped outside, lunchbox clutched tightly against her. The air had shifted cooler, now heavier. Not quite stormy, but full of tension. She glanced around the clearing. Nothing. But her instincts screamed otherwise. She wasn't alone. Instead of going straight back to her car, Hannah made her way to the fourth cabin, the one furthest from the trail. It looked worse than the others, its roof caved in, the door unhinged. But something about it drew her in. She stepped through the broken threshold. It smelled like damp dirt and animal waste. The floor was half gone, rotted in spots. And there in the far corner lay what looked like a wooden chest. It was half buried under collapsed roofing and leaves. She pulled debris away, revealing a rusted lock and the faint outline of a child's name carved in sloppy lettering. Lacey M. She covered her mouth. Had Lacey carved that, or had someone else? She yanked on the lid, but it wouldn't budge. She needed tools, something to pry it open. Something stronger than her bare hands. Back at her car, Hannah drove straight to her mother's house. Denise opened the door slowly. She looked tired, older than Hannah remembered, her eyes hollowed with too many sleepless nights that stretched across too many years. "I found something," Hannah said. They sat at the kitchen table as Hannah opened the lunchbox and laid out the letters. Denise didn't cry. She just sat there reading each one slowly, carefully, her fingers brushing the paper like it might disappear if she wasn't gentle. She was alive, she whispered. She was out there, and no one. Her voice cracked. No one knew. No one looked there, Hannah said. Because it was private property. Because it was inconvenient. Her mother shook her head. Because they thought she was dead. The next morning, Hannah returned to the police department, this time not asking, demanding. She showed them the letters, the box, the carved name. Detective Ellison stared at the evidence in stunned silence for several seconds. "You're saying she was kept in one of the old lake cabins? I'm saying she was alive for at least 2 months, and there are more places out there that no one's touched in over a decade. I found a locked chest. I need someone to go back with me." He nodded. "We'll organize a team. Today." By noon, Hannah returned to the cabin site, this time with 2 officers, a crime scene tech, and a county sheriff. They pried open the chest. Inside were children's clothes, old, damp, but intact. Pajamas with unicorns, a pair of shoes, a small doll with one missing eye, and a Polaroid photo. It was of Lacey sitting on the floor wrapped in a blanket holding the same doll. She looked directly at the camera. She was smiling. The sheriff pulled Hannah aside. "We'll need to test everything," he said. "We'll catalog it all, run for prints. But this changes things. Who owned these cabins back then?" He scratched his head. "It's a mess. The land changed hands 3 times. The original owner died in '98. Then it was bought by a man named Jeremy Kelter. Sold again in 2004. We'll look into it." Kelter, Hannah repeated. "That name's familiar. It should be Ellison cut in. He was a suspect. Briefly. Lived 2 blocks from your family. But he moved a month before Lacey disappeared. Left no forwarding address." Hannah's blood ran cold. "Find him," she said. "He knows more than anyone else." That night, Hannah couldn't sleep. She sat on the porch flipping through the letters again. Each one was a piece of her sister's mind preserved in ink and fear. And the longer she read, the more one line echoed in her thoughts. There's something under the bed that scratches at night. She had dismissed it. A child's imagination, or maybe a raccoon, like Lacey guessed. But now she wasn't sure. Because what if it wasn't an animal? What if it was someone else? July 20th, 2014. 2:11 a.m. The wind pushed gently against the thin curtains in Hannah's childhood bedroom, fluttering the fabric like whispers. She was awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word in the letters. Her fingers twitched from holding them too tight. Her eyes burned from reading too long. There's something under the bed that scratches at night. The line from Lacey's last letter wouldn't leave her alone. It echoed, twisted, looped. The words sounded innocent, a child's imagination, a fear born from loneliness, but the context changed everything. Lacey hadn't written the sentence like a scared kid. She'd written it like a warning, like it was something that happened again and again. Hannah sat up and reached for the nightstand where the tape recorder sat, the same one Detective Ellison had given her earlier that day. It had been found in the red lunchbox wrapped in a faded sock. He hadn't told the media yet, not until they could analyze the contents, but he'd let Hannah listen off the record. The cassette inside was labeled in marker day 36. She clicked play. The audio began with static, then breathing, then a tiny voice. "Okay, I'm gonna talk now. It's really dark, but I have the candle. The man didn't come today. He didn't bring food. I think he's mad again. I heard scratching again, under the bed. It comes late, like when it's quiet. I think it's the girl." Pause. "Sometimes I hear crying, but only when I don't move. If I breathe too loud, it goes quiet. I asked if she wants to come up, but she never says anything back." Click. The tape cut off. Hannah stared at the machine. The girl. It wasn't an animal. Lacey hadn't thought it was, not really. She thought it was a person, another child, or something that used to be one. The next morning, she drove to the cabin site again, this time without alerting the police. She brought gloves, a flashlight, and a crowbar she found in her mother's garage. She wasn't supposed to be there. The site was now under restricted access, but she needed to see for herself, not wait for paperwork, not wait for permission. The fourth cabin, the one with the chest, was marked off with yellow police tape, but the tape was sagging. No one had been back since the initial search. Inside, the floor was still broken in the corner, the hearth open. The doll still lay in the chest where they had left it. But Hannah went to the bed. The wooden frame was crooked, and most of the mattress had collapsed into the floor. She dragged it aside, revealing rotted wood beneath. Then she noticed something, a seam in the planks, barely visible. She tapped it, hollow. A trapdoor. She wedged the crowbar into the crack and pulled. The wood groaned, splintered, gave way. A cold rush of air spilled upward, earthy, wet, mold. She lowered the flashlight. Steps led downward, just 5 carved crudely into packed dirt. Below was a crawl space about 4 feet high, the floor of it uneven and damp. The beam of her light swept across debris, broken crates, torn cloth bones. And in the corner, a small blanket, purple. Something moved. Hannah froze. She crouched, stepped down into the space. Her heart thudded, her breathing ragged. As she drew closer, the light revealed a figure. Not alive. A skeleton. Curled up. Tiny. She dropped the flashlight. The police came within the hour. She didn't tell them how she'd found it, didn't explain why she was there. The remains were carefully removed. The coroner confirmed what she already knew. Female, approximate age 10-12. Deceased over a decade. Cause of death unknown, pending examination. Hannah didn't cry. She sat on a log outside the cabin, watching the sun rise, her mind racing. The second child, the girl under the bed. Had Lacey seen her ghost? Or had Lacey been living above her bones, never knowing she was next? At the sheriff's office later that day, Detective Ellison brought her into a side room. "We got a name," he said, "on the cabins." Kelter, Hannah asked. He nodded. Jeremy Allen Kelter. Purchased the property in late '99, paid cash, lived in a trailer about 6 miles from the cabins, disappeared off the grid in 2004, no taxes filed, no driver's license renewal, no credit history. Was he ever questioned back then? Briefly. But at the time, we had nothing tying him to Lacey. He cooperated, then he vanished. Where is he now? Ellison sighed. Unknown. But get this, the dental records from the skeleton don't match anyone in our system. She wasn't reported missing. So no one was looking for her. No one even knew she was gone. The media exploded when the story broke. Second child found in secret cellar beneath abandoned cabin. Lacey Morin's letters confirm survival post-disappearance. Serial predator tied to 2002 Bellwood case. Hannah shut off her phone, stopped answering calls, moved into a motel by the edge of town. Because none of it answered the one question she needed most. What happened to Lacey after the letters stopped? That night, a knock came at her motel door. It was Detective Ellison holding a brown envelope. We ran prints off the Polaroid, got a partial. He sat on the edge of the bed, opened the envelope. The photo of Lacey, the one from the chest. In the corner, faint a thumbprint. We cross-checked it against old case files, not just local. He pulled out another photo. A mugshot. The name read Jeremy Kelter, arrested in 1993 for assault. Charges dropped. Never prosecuted. Ellison met her eyes. He took the photo. Hannah's voice came out hollow, and he kept her. We think so. For how long? We don't know. But he was seen in New Mexico in 2005, used a fake ID to rent a trailer. He was never seen again. As the sun sank, Hannah sat alone again, staring at the now familiar letters. There were no good answers. But one thing was clear. Lacey hadn't died in 2002. She had survived. She had written. She had waited. And for at least 67 days, she had hoped someone would find her. Hannah reached for the last letter again, now laminated to preserve it. The handwriting was shakier, the lines crooked. But at the very bottom, barely visible, was one more sentence Hannah hadn't seen before. It was in faint pencil, written sideways in the corner. He says there's more girls. He says they live in the lake. Hannah dropped the page. The lake. There was more. July 23, 2014, 11 to 28 p.m. Hannah stared at the letter again. The words hadn't changed, but her understanding of them had. He says there's more girls. He says they live in the lake. It wasn't metaphorical. It wasn't a dream. Lacey had written it in the last known piece of communication from her, an afterthought scrawled sideways in pencil along the margin. It was nearly invisible, something she hadn't seen the first several times she read through the letters. But now it burned through her thoughts like a warning. More girls. The lake had already given back Lacey's bike. It had already revealed a second girl, buried, nameless, forgotten. But now there was a suggestion of others. What did that even mean? Were they alive? Were they dead? Were they ever found? Had anyone even known they were missing? The next morning, Hannah returned to the sheriff's office. Detective Ellison looked as exhausted as she felt. He motioned for her to sit without saying a word and slid a folder across the desk. Inside were photos, aerial views of Lake Elbridge, some recent, some scanned from old county records. One image caught her attention, a cluster of outbuildings that hadn't been visited yet. Farther off, the lake's main trail system, inaccessible, except by water. What's this, she asked. Another section of the Kelter property. Technically, it was annexed in the early 2000s, but no one ever developed it. We think he used a rowboat to get between the cabins and that dock. Why weren't these searched before? Because they were overgrown, not visible from any road. And frankly, no one ever considered the property was used in full, until now. Can we go? Ellison exhaled. We're getting a dive team ready, tomorrow morning, but I'll take you by boat today, if you're up for it. I'm not waiting. July 24, 2014, 7:15 p.m. The water lapped against the hull of the small sheriff's department motorboat. Hannah sat near the bow, arms folded tightly across her chest, her eyes locked on the tree line ahead. She wasn't sure what she expected to find, if anything, but her stomach churned with anticipation or dread or both. They rounded a bend, and suddenly the woods parted, revealing a narrow inlet. At the edge, a collapsed dock, its planks covered in moss. Beyond that, a clearing almost perfectly round, and in its center, a shed. It looked almost laughably small, like a garden tool shed. But even from here, Hannah could see the padlock had been removed recently. Storm last year blew some trees down, Ellison explained. We think that's why this area got exposed. Hunters spotted the shed a few months ago but didn't report it. They docked and stepped into ankle-high water. Hannah hesitated at the edge of the clearing, but the shed called to her like a heartbeat. She approached slowly Ellison, just behind her, his hand resting lightly on the grip of his holstered weapon. The door creaked open. Inside was nothing. No body, no bed, no boxes. Just a trap door sealed with a rusted iron ring. Ellison looked at her. Want to wait for backup? No, she said. She didn't wait 12 years for me to wait now. He nodded and pulled. The door gave with a grunt, revealing a square hole in the earth. A ladder descended into shadow. The smell hit them almost instantly, damp rot, something sour and old. Hannah descended first. The room below was stone-lined, barely tall enough to stand in, and it was cold, unnaturally so, considering the July heat above. The floor was packed dirt. A single bulb hung from a wire in the ceiling, long dead. But what lit up under their flashlights made Hannah step back. Names. Dozens of them. Carved into the stone walls, in different handwriting sizes, depths. Tina, Grace, Marielle, S.G. Some included dates, some didn't. Some just said help. Ellison walked the room in stunned silence. I need a full forensics crew here, he whispered, and a list of every missing girl within 100 miles over the last 30 years. Then he spotted a cornerstone loose at the bottom of the wall. He crouched and pulled it out. Inside, a leather pouch brittle with age. He opened it. Inside were Polaroids, dozens, each one labeled in neat handwriting. And in each a different girl. July 25, 2014, 9:00 a.m. The dive team began work at the southern end of Lake Elbridge. By noon, they located a submerged oil drum buried in silt. By 3:00 p.m., 2 more. One of them contained a school backpack perfectly preserved. Another held child-sized clothing vacuums sealed in plastic. Another contained bones. The lake had been hiding bodies. Not just Lacey's truth, but many. That evening, Hannah sat across from Denise at the kitchen table, both women hollowed by grief and revelation. There were others, Hannah said. Lacey wasn't the first. Denise nodded. But she told us. She tried. They just didn't listen. They sat in silence. The TV in the other room played a news segment about the discovery. Images of the lake flashed across the screen. Reporters used words like breakthrough, mass grave, horrific legacy. But none of that mattered to Hannah. Because as horrific as the discovery was, it didn't answer the one question she still couldn't let go. Where is Lacey now? The letters had stopped in July 2002. Her body hadn't been found in the cabin. She hadn't been in the shed. Her name wasn't carved on those walls. So either Kelter kept her longer or someone else took her. That night, as Hannah tried to sleep, her phone buzzed. It was Ellison. He sounded strange. We got something. From the recovered tapes, VHS. One of them's labeled LM Final. Hannah felt her chest tighten. You need to come in tomorrow, first thing. July 26, 2014, 7:02 a.m. The morning light hadn't yet reached full strength when Hannah parked outside the sheriff's department. She didn't need coffee. Her body hummed with nervous anticipation. LM. Final. Those words had played on a loop in her mind ever since Detective Ellison called the night before. A final tape. Initials that matched Lacey Morin. She hadn't told her mother, couldn't, not yet. Some part of her feared what the tape might show. Not because she didn't want the truth, but because the truth might mean there was nothing more to find. No more leads. No more hope. Just an ending. Ellison met her in the small media room, a dim space with 2 chairs and a bulky CRT television on a rolling cart, the kind used in classrooms in the 90s. On top of the TV sat an old Panasonic VHS player. I had it digitized, he said, but I want you to see it the way it was originally recorded. Hannah sat down, fingers twisting in her lap. You watched it already. He nodded. Parts. I wanted to screen it first. Some of it's difficult. She said nothing. He pushed the tape in, pressed play. The screen flickered. Blue static gave way to a dark, grainy image. A room, one she recognized immediately. The inside of the third cabin. The one where she'd found the letters. The angle was low, pointing toward the fireplace. A child-sized figure sat cross-legged on the floor, wearing a sweatshirt far too big for her. Her hair was longer than Hannah remembered, but her face, round cheeks, slightly downturned, mouth-wide brown eyes, was unmistakable. Lacey. Alive. Breathing. Looking directly at the camera. "Is it on?" she asked. Her voice was softer than Hannah remembered. Not fearful, just tired. A man's voice off camera responded, "Yes, sweetheart. Just talk like you did before." Lacey nodded. She fidgeted with her hands. "Okay, I'm Lacey. I'm 10. I've been here for a long time. I don't know how long, but I wanted to say, in case someone finds this, that I tried to be good." She hesitated, looked down. "I think the man is sick. He says he's going to leave soon. He says I'll have to go somewhere else." Another pause. Her breathing quickened. "There was another girl here, but she stopped talking. Then she was gone. I think she went under the bed. Sometimes I still hear her." Lacey looked up again. "I want to go home. I don't care if I get in trouble. I just want to go back to my bed. I miss my pillow, and the stars on my ceiling, and my sister." She started to cry, then wiped her face angrily. "I'm not supposed to cry. He doesn't like it." The camera jolted as the man's footsteps approached. The screen cut to black. Ellison paused the tape. "That's the first segment." "How long is it?" Hannah whispered. 17 minutes total. Most of it is her, just talking. But near the end, he moves the camera. "That's the part I needed to warn you about." "Play it." He hesitated. "Are you sure?" "Play it." The screen jumped again. Now the camera was handheld shakier, closer to Lacey's face. She looked startled, as if woken from sleep. "What's happening?" she asked. The man's voice calm but urgent. "Get up. Get dressed. We're leaving." "Where?" I said now. The tape flickered. Lacey pulling on a jacket. The man opening the cabin door. Trees. Darkness. Then, most disturbingly, a second figure appears briefly on camera. Just a silhouette. Thin. Wearing a hood. Standing near the tree line. Lacey doesn't react. But the man says, "Don't worry, he'll take care of you now." The screen shifts again, this time to the interior of a car. Night outside. A radio playing faintly. Lacey sits in the passenger seat silent. No seatbelt. Then the tape ends. Hannah sat frozen. Ellison turned off the TV. "He gave her away," she said softly, "to someone else." Ellison nodded. "We think he was preparing to leave permanently. Maybe scared of being caught. Maybe just tired. Either way, it looks like he handed her off to someone else. Who? We don't know. But we're enhancing the footage. And we've submitted a still of the silhouette to state and federal databases. For now, that's all we have." July 27th, 2014, late afternoon. Hannah couldn't sit still. She couldn't go home, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. The image of her sister alive, moving, talking, haunted her. And so did the figure in the trees. Who was he? Why hadn't he been found? The more she thought, the more something gnawed at her. "He'll take care of you now." It hadn't sounded sinister. It had sounded familiar, like two people who knew each other, not a stranger. So who else had been in Kelter's life? She returned to the sheriff's office and requested access to Kelter's known associates. One name came up more than once: Russell Doyle. Mechanic, mid-40s, lived in a trailer west of Bellwood, arrested twice in the 90s for trespassing and theft. No convictions. He'd worked with Kelter on several properties, including the original remodeling of the lake cabins in 1999. And in 2005, he'd been questioned in the disappearance of a 12-year-old girl named Lydia Vargas, who vanished near a gas station 30 miles south of Bellwood. Her body was never found. Case went cold. Hannah's blood chilled. Was he ever tied to the lake, she asked Ellison. Not directly, but if he and Kelter were close, it's possible. Where is he now? Ellison pulled the current address. Still in the same trailer. Still off the grid, still quiet. I want to go there. You're not a cop. You don't need a warrant to talk. He shook his head. You're not going alone. July 28th, 2014, 6:41 p.m. The trailer was faded blue rust, crawling up the base like ivy. Two old cars sat in the dirt driveway, both half dismantled. A wind chime made from beer cans clinked in the breeze. Ellison and Hannah stood at the edge of the property. You sure you're ready for this? He asked. She nodded. They approached the door. Ellison knocked. After a long pause, the door opened. A man stood there, thin, leathery, balding. He looked tired and annoyed. Can I help you? Russell Doyle Ellison asked. He nodded. We have some questions about Jeremy Kelter. Doyle's face twitched. Haven't heard that name in a long time. Hannah stepped forward. Where did he take my sister? The man's eyes flicked to her narrowed. Who are you? Hannah Morin. That name stuck. She could see it in his reaction, the faint twitch at the corner of his mouth, the quick glance toward the woods behind his trailer. He knew. He knew something. July 28th, 2014, 6:44 p.m. For a moment, no one moved. Hannah stood 3 feet from Russell Doyle, her breath shallow, her chest tight, her eyes locked on his. His thin frame filled the doorway of the trailer, arms resting casually against the frame, too casually. But it wasn't the man's posture that bothered her. It was the way he looked past her, beyond Ellison, beyond the car, toward the woods. Just a flick of the eye, barely a second. But Hannah saw it. He wasn't looking at a dog or a neighbor. He was checking to see if something or someone was still hidden back there. Ellison spoke first, keeping his tone polite but clipped. Mr. Doyle, we're re-examining several unsolved cases. You were previously associated with a Jeremy Kelter. Your name came up again. Doyle shrugged. Yeah, I knew Jeremy, years ago. Haven't seen him in over a decade. Do you remember the cabins at Lake Elbridge? Another shrug. Sure. Helped him fix one up. Real dump. He paid cash. Didn't ask questions. Hannah stepped forward. Did he ever talk about Lacey Morin? Doyle blinked. Just once. But again he flinched. No idea who that is? You hesitated, she said flatly. Doyle's lips pressed together. You people think you can come out here, throw around names and faces and expect me to… She was 10, Hannah interrupted. He took her in 2002. She was alive for months. He made her record herself. And then he gave her away. We have it on tape. Doyle's face turned to stone. I don't know what you think you found, he said, voice colder now, but I got nothing to do with any of that. Ellison stepped in. Do you mind if we come in? Yes, I do. I can get a warrant. Then come back with one. The door began to close. Hannah slammed her hand against it. She said there were more girls. She said he told her they live in the lake. Was that you? Were you the one waiting in the woods? You took her from him, didn't you? Doyle's expression didn't change. But he didn't deny it. That night, Ellison filed for a search warrant. The judge approved it within 2 hours. By 11:30 p.m., the trailer was surrounded. Russell Doyle didn't resist. But he didn't cooperate either. I want a lawyer, was all he said. What they found inside the trailer changed everything. The interior was a museum of rot. Stacked newspapers, VHS tapes in black plastic cases, several notebooks filled with dates and names, and in the back room a locked freezer. Inside, nothing but Polaroids wrapped in freezer bags, some labeled, some not. At least 3 of them, according to facial recognition tech, matched missing persons from the early 2000s. None had ever been found. And then there was the journal. Handwritten. Titled only J.K. Kelter's initials. Inside were pages of erratic, disconnected thoughts, ramblings, descriptions of rituals, repetitive phrases. But one stood out. She was the only one who didn't scream. The girl with the lake eyes. I told Russ he could have her, but he had to keep her fed. Hannah read that line over and over. Lake eyes. She remembered Lacey's eyes. Dark, still, deep like water. Ellison slammed the file shut. Kelter groomed them, Doyle collected them, and my sister Hannah asked. We don't know, but he had her. We think so. The next morning they began excavation of the woods behind the trailer. It took less than 5 hours to find the first grave. Shallow, fresh compared to others, Less than 5 years old. But it wasn't Lacey. It was Lydia Vargas. Her ID was in the bag with her remains. So was the outfit she'd worn the day she vanished in 2005. Confirmation. More digging revealed 2 more sets of bones. But again, none were Lacey. Hannah stood at the edge of the tree line as the sun rose behind her, the air thick with morning mist and sorrow. She should have felt relief that these girls were finally being found. But the absence of her sister among them only deepened her ache. Where was she? Where did he take her? And why wasn't she here? July 30th, 2014, 9:13 a.m. Doyle finally spoke. Not to Ellison, not to the agents, not to the press. To Hannah. He asked for her. And when she entered the interview room, he didn't look at her, just stared at the table. His voice was low. He gave her to me, but not like the others. What does that mean? Hannah asked. She wasn't like them. She didn't cry, she didn't fight, she talked, asked questions, drew pictures. Hannah's throat closed. What did you do to her? Doyle flinched. Nothing, not like you think. Then where is she? He looked up. I gave her to someone else. Silence. He had a place, not far, near the edge of the lake. Said he could make her disappear. Who? Doyle hesitated. His lips trembled. And then, I don't know his name, but they called him the Reverend. July 30th, 2014, 9:31 a.m. The room was quiet except for the low buzz of the ceiling light. Hannah leaned forward, heart-pounding fingers clenched in her lap. The Reverend, she repeated. Russell Doyle wouldn't meet her eyes. His voice was flat mechanical, like he was reciting a memory long buried under shame or fear or both. That's what Jeremy called him. I don't know his real name. Don't think I ever did. He wasn't a priest, wasn't even religious far as I could tell, but people called him that because of the way he talked, all calm and creepy like he was delivering a sermon. Where did he live? Doyle's jaw tensed. He shook his head slowly. I only saw him twice, both times at night. He never came to the trailer. We met near a fire pit in the woods. He had a van. Beat-up thing. No plates. He never gave last names, never gave addresses, just offered to take her. And you just gave her away. His silence said everything. When Hannah stepped out of the interview room, Ellison was already on the phone. She could hear him requesting cross-checks on anyone nicknamed Reverend Any Known Predators, with ties to the region cult activity, isolated religious compounds, anything. He hung up. It's a long shot, he said. But if he's real, and I think he is, he didn't just vanish. Men like that leave trails, especially if they have victims. Then let's follow it. Flashback, August 2002. The scene opened in Lacey's letters. There's a new man. I don't know his name. He wears a black coat and smells like firewood. He said I was going somewhere cleaner. He didn't smile. He asked me weird questions. If I believed in sin, if I thought bad people go to hell, he gave me a lollipop after. Then he told me not to talk anymore. At the time, Hannah hadn't understood it, hadn't connected it to anyone specific. But now the pieces clicked. Lacey had met the Reverend. July 30th, 2014, 10:47 a.m. The FBI joined the case officially. With at least 5 bodies confirmed, a multi-state task force was formed. Hannah, though not officially part of it, was kept in the loop by Ellison. The first lead came from an old tip. 2006, a man calling himself Brother Calvin held gatherings in abandoned buildings in upstate New York, preached cleansing by fire, no charges filed, disbanded in 2007. The composite sketch showed a man with long gray hair, clean-shaven face, narrow eyes, a smile that never reached his pupils. That's him, Doyle said when shown the sketch. That's the one. That's the Reverend. The hunt began. Records showed that Brother Calvin had rented properties under fake IDs, a cabin in Vermont, a storage unit in Pennsylvania, a farmhouse in southern Ohio, all empty now. But one location just 2 hours from Bellwood stood out, a church-turned-commune purchased under an LLC in 2003, abandoned in 2008. The land backed up to a tributary that flowed into Lake Elbridge. Ellison looked at Hannah. Ready for a road trip? August 1, 2014, 3:02 p.m. The church was rotting. The windows were boarded. The bell tower crumbled. Ivy crept up the stone walls like fingers trying to pull the place down. Behind it stood two outbuildings, one a tool shed, the other a small dormitory. But it was the cellar that drew their attention. An entrance at the side of the church hidden behind collapsed shrubs. The door hung loose. The air was sour and still. They descended the steps. Flashlights clicked on. The room below was windowless. A concrete slab floor walls lined with shelves, jars of old herbs, pages of handwritten prayers or warnings taped to the walls, strange symbols in faded chalk. And in the far corner a cot, with a chain, bolted to the wall. They searched for hours. No sign of recent use. But on the shelf beneath a stack of water-damaged books, Ellison found a folder. Inside drawings, children's drawings, some in crayon, some charcoal, some smeared. One caught Hannah's eye, a stick figure with long hair standing near a cabin. Another showed a lake with two dark shapes underwater. But the one that stopped her cold was the smallest drawing in pencil, folded 3 times. When she opened it, she saw the name written carefully at the bottom corner. LM. She was here, Hannah whispered. And maybe she got out, Ellison added. They kept searching. And finally, in a crevice behind the furnace, they found it. A boot, child-sized, purple rubber, inside a rolled-up note sealed in plastic. The paper was stained, the ink faded, but the words were unmistakable. If someone finds this, please tell my sister I didn't stop thinking about her. He says this is the end, but I don't believe him. I think someone will come. Signed, Lacey. Hannah collapsed into a crouch. It was real. All of it. The pain, the waiting, the fight to be remembered. She had left this behind on purpose as proof. But even as she wept, something else burned inside her. She still wasn't found. There was no body, no record of transfer, no confirmation of death, which meant one terrible, miraculous possibility still remained. Lacey might be alive. August 1st, 2014, 5:42 p.m. The cellar had gone silent after the discovery of the note. Hannah knelt beside the rusted boot, still clutching the plastic-sealed letter in her hand. It wasn't just another artifact. It wasn't just more confirmation that Lacey had been there. This was something different. This was defiant. Lacey hadn't given up. Even in a place that reeked of fear and control, she'd left a message behind not for anyone, but for Hannah. Ellison placed a gentle hand on her shoulder but didn't speak. There were no words big enough for this. If someone finds this, please tell my sister I didn't stop thinking about her. He says this is the end, but I don't believe him. I think someone will come. Lacey.